If you've been following my channel for a long time, which I hope you haven't, that would be embarrassing, then you'll know that my beginnings were pretty rough. My earliest videos involved a lot of posturing and pretending to be intelligent so as to emulate the greatest of the video essay genre. You know, those people who make like 5-hour videos about one piece of media, your King K's, your super eye patch wolves, what have you. I always wanted to be like them. I aspired to reach those heights, and so I would just blandly read off facts about things in order to achieve a length that I thought would make me look smart if you just glanced at the timestamp. I was a fraud, but I just didn't think I could do any better, so I took pride in my fraudulence. Hey, fake it till you make it, right? That's what I figured. I mean, I couldn't actually do what they did. I was just inherently worse, much younger, and so very much less intelligent. They probably put in hours of research and studying into every paragraph, while I was just a soulless hack kid author who could read off the words of someone else. Maybe that's all I'm really doing in this video too. After all, who can really say? I'm just the author of Boastgusters, which is not really known for its substance. You know, just this once. I'd like to think that this is different, though. My perspective on my writing has changed significantly within just the last few months. Allow me to explain, dear viewer. For my entire life, I thought that I'd be stuck in this rut. The rut of forever copying the works of others without anything new to add in any capacity. I mean, my YouTube videos were based mostly on Wikipedia articles. A comment describes it best, I feel. There's no point to this. You're literally just reading off Wikipedia. I felt that me reading Wikipedia could be justified for those who might not be able to read Wikipedia very easily due to their own neurodivergencies, but even then, I probably couldn't justify the literal plagiarism that I was committing on my channel. It felt like I was making a lot of videos, but in reality, I wasn't really making much of anything besides the equivalent of those WiiWare shovelware games from the late 2000s. In some respects, my magnum opus, Boastgusters, is similar. Though it's not plagiarizing anything directly, it is heavily derivative. Instead of changing that, I made it work to its advantage, and I think that ultimately something unique and beautiful was born from it. The aspects that I draw from other stories congeal and come together in a way that makes them seem entirely different and fresh. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a minor villain for instance, is synthesized with the characters of the Terminator, Hidan from Naruto, and some aspects of Darth Vader to create something entirely new. I even use aspects from Arnold Schwarzenegger's real life to inform his character. I quite like the reassembled Lego pieces that I've made into their own unique builds, to put it in a different perspective. But even still, Boastgusters is ultimately still just rewriting other people's work, and very blatantly. So it shouldn't be hard to imagine that I felt I could only be creatively bankrupt for my entire life when everything I've ever done is based directly on other people's work. After all, wouldn't you feel that way if you only made things that were blatantly, well, other things? For a while, I was confident in this facade. That all changed in the past year, especially through making that god-awful retrospective series I put on the channel. Those kind of videos have always existed on my channel in some form since I started uploading videos in 2017, but I think that might have been the worst incarnation. Even worse, I had so many people fooled into thinking that it was not terrible. It didn't help that I had a huge new cast of supporting friends in my life, after losing a bunch of them the year prior due to other events. I met a lot of people in 2020 and 2021 that changed the way I lived my life, and affected me in ways I could never imagine a person would affect me. Due to circumstances that I'm sure you are already aware of, I had a lot more time to not only be introspective, but to just talk to people. I met my first really serious partner in May of 2020. I found a writing community that would accept me for who I was and constantly have my back throughout most of the year. I even met fellow Super Smash Bros. Fans who reignited my love for the game. Things started to look up for me. A crescendo in the life of Kai, the Boastgusters author. Sadly, the crescendo cannot be the only part of the musical performance, and in October, Everything that had been built up for me over the past year had tumbled down once again into the diminuendo. My girlfriend left me because I started to question my gender. It's a lot more complicated than that, but trust me, it was not really her fault at the end. I don't want to make her look any worse than she should. Anyway, that event was just what started the domino effect. A few days later, I was banned from the writing server that I mentioned, which she was a mod on. Note to self, don't get in a relationship with somebody who has a huge amount of power over you. And that was probably my only support group for the past few months. I left the Super Smash Bros. Server because I didn't want to get into a political argument about the nature of communism with someone. I was a mess. And I still am. It didn't help that the game I started playing right after the breakup was Mother 3. A darkly depressing game about the cruelty of mankind and the end of the world. I might do a video on my thoughts on that game another day, as it was both a comfort and a curse in one of my darkest hours. It's probably my favorite video game of all time. I didn't tell anyone what was going on in my head at the time because, well, what was I supposed to say? Like, I'm not interested in getting a lecture from my father, who is, well, famous for his lectures. But it's not even just that. It's also just hard to know what's going on in your own mind while it's going on. And I've only been able to come to these conclusions about what was happening because hindsight's 20/20. But that's not what this is about. Those are just a few things that I've experienced over the course of this cataclysmic pandemic. Things that made my life a living hell. Time marches on. I'd be remiss not to mention that my hyperfixation, I have autism, on politics hadn't brought me several new friends, though I admit they come and go fairly quickly as well. For a few months, one of the only things I have been able to find myself thinking about anymore is politics. A lot of people say that's odd for my age range, but I don't know if it is. I mean, I meet a lot of people in my age range who are very invested in political situations. That could just be due to my bubble of socialization, though. Someone I met in January of 2021, an older sister figure, has changed me in a profound way. This lady wrote a fantastic video on the Legend of Korra that is 40 minutes long. For a few weeks she kept telling me to watch it, and at first I was hesitant. If you don't know me, and you probably don't if you're watching this, it's hard for me to watch something that somebody else tells me to watch, even when I don't necessarily not want to watch it. I have no idea why, but it's just hard for me to find the motivation to actually sit down and watch it. It took me like 3 years to actually watch BoJack Horseman from one of my friend's recommendations, and it ended up becoming one of my all-time favorite shows. I'll leave a link in the description to her video because of how important it was to me into the creation of this video that you are hopefully enjoying right now. In this video, Alice makes a few points, mostly about the Avatar series, which I don't feel particularly strongly about, if I'll be honest. Although I do think it's good. But the ways that it ties back to her life are so powerful. And not only are they powerful, they're just relatable on a personal level for me in particular. This video really spoke to me for that reason. Just like me, she had started getting into writing in her junior year of high school. And just like me, she had always wanted to write video essays, but nothing ever really seemed to work. I've been trying to do it for so long that I just made mine derivative, whereas she just stopped trying for a long time. It took her a while to be able to make a video essay she'd truly be happy with, and she eventually did. Wow. I mean, I didn't know it was possible. I mean, logically, it always made sense. I mean, you get better at things as you do them more. But I'd never seen it happen before. All of the great video essayists I've mentioned, King K and Super Eye Patch Wolf, they don't talk about their history of making video essays. They don't acknowledge it directly. So to hear somebody's journey and how it was so very similar to mine really helped me feel like I could do it too. It was incredibly powerful. A wonderful quote from the video is that when it comes to media analysis, it's not about finding the point, it's about finding a point. No matter what interpretation, provided it be in good faith, you have of a piece of art, it's valid. Art is defined by its relationship to the person who indulges in it, and in turn, many of us define ourselves by our relationship to the art that we indulge in. It's a thing that's very unique to humanity as a species. This interpretive philosophy about life is one that I would think about and believe I held for a very long time, probably since I was in 9th grade at least, but I never really internalized it until I heard somebody else say it. I mean, it always made sense to me. However, I kept trying and trying to apply objectivity to art. How do you even do that? It's not possible. But somehow, I was fooled into thinking that your King K's of the world were using some kind of objective metric and formula to write what they were writing. I remember I would ask him in the comments constantly, how do you write these? And he'd never respond, of course, but I kept trying to get an answer because I thought there was some rubric, there was some structure to how this was done. And as I was writing the script, I think I came up with the reason why I thought that way. Part of the issue, I think, is the rigidity with which we are expected to write essays in the American public school system. Before you start having some whataboutism assumptions, I am not implying that other public school systems are any better, because I don't know, I've never been in them. I just know that the public school system as a concept is inherently oppressive, and the way America teaches this particular subject has had this particular outcome on my mindset. I cannot speak to how Sweden, for example, teaches essaying. But anyway, we're expected to follow a certain formula for creating an essay, with, 3 paragraphs in the body and an introduction and a conclusion, and sometimes a paragraph for context or a counterpoint. Even though this particular formula is very rigid and taught as if it's perfect, it doesn't really lead you to interesting conclusions about yourself or about the work, just because it wants you to deduce an objective truth about it. I mean, I don't really want to read essays about somebody's objective truth relating to a novel. That would just be like the title of the novel or the day the novel came out. Let me give an example. The essay that I ended up writing about Heart of Darkness is probably the essay that I'm most proud of. It was a commentary on how Heart of Darkness was a commentary itself on Victorian London sexism. Now, when I read Heart of Darkness, the work actually didn't speak to me in any particular way. We were able to choose anything to write about as long as we had the evidence. And I decided to write about this particular topic because I could use JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood as a source. Let me say that again. The only reason I wrote an essay was not because the book gave me a message while I was reading it that resonated with me, or because the book had this particularly provocative underlying theme. I wrote it because I could reference a manga that I like to read for fun as a source. I really think that speaks for itself. Our discussions of art should not center around what references to other art we'd rather be experiencing then this art that we're currently discussing, they should be about the art that we're discussing. This rigidity in the school system also translated into how I defined myself for a long, long time. When I was severely depressed in early 2019, what got me out of that was pretending that I had some greater purpose by working on my schoolwork and to maintain the status quo, doing my best to mask my strange neurodivergence. I thought that tradition existed for a reason and that upholding it was very important. It was a coping mechanism, and in some ways I never really got out of that rut because of it. I just got better at convincing myself I had resolved those issues. Order was something for me to lean on, something for me to appeal to when I didn't know what else there was to do. Instead of embracing the unimaginable and chaotic tapestry of life, I just vaguely gestured that things made sense. This works for some people, and I won't discredit them for that, but for me it just felt like a disingenuous way to live. Luckily, my closeness with the transgender community, which I've always had for some reason, was what saved me from that. I have always felt more at home with people who themselves were not comfortable with their own gender. I don't know why, and being around them helped me realize how shitty I was being by trying to limit everyone with rules that were made up by people. Who cares what gender is? Who cares what class is? Who cares about all of these social constructs? Why should I enforce a system that has no reason to be enforced other than making people suffer and others profiting off of it? It just didn't make sense then. And it certainly doesn't make sense now with all the theory I've read and how far I've come since then. Once I dropped these false pretenses that I had to adhere to rules and structure all the time, I found that writing essays for my channel or otherwise became a lot more natural. It just sort of flows now. I don't focus on trying to make it as long as I can or as quote-unquote analytical as I can. It's just about me now, because that's what you're here to see. Talking to Alice about that video and learning more about her as a person outside of it also helped me quite a bit. She knows a lot about video essay writing, and it just helps an awful lot to have another person to talk to about your ideas, so you know if you can work them into a full piece. In another ironic parallel to the Cora video, Alice is like my mentor figure to the one that Alice had when she was a senior. A younger, but still slightly older, she's 20 and I'm 18, individual who would give me a new lease on life. She even helped me with a bit with the script of this one, though most of the editing I did by myself. I'm still not hopeful. I'm still an awfully pessimistic person, and I'm definitely nihilistic in some respects, but I care about people again. The new connections that I've made over politics, even though a lot of our conversations happen to be just plain depressing, I value heavily. I care about doing things again. I've started to plan another D&D campaign just for the hell of it once I get fully vaccinated. And I feel like I might be able to make something that people will enjoy and talk about and find thought-provoking. That's why I even bothered to try and make this video and have people look over the script. I knew it would hurt to see their feedback no matter what it was, but I knew I could get this out. Now it's finally here. Being genuine in a video like this is always very difficult for me, and I apologize for the change in the usual tone. I often do something a lot more ironic when I let the mask of reading off somebody else's work slip, like my April Fool's Day jokes that I perform rather inconsistently. For reference, the last time I actually released one was 3 years ago. I think that the comedic aspect of this channel is going to change. One of the few places I can be myself is here, so why should I be someone else? There's no corporeal form to limit me. I'm the author of Boastgusters, goddammit, and that means no matter what, I stay on top. This has been Arcagent Everlasting... No. I'm not a lyric from the Homestuck soundtrack that sounds really cool as an individual phrase. This has been Kai, signing off. Thank you for listening.